In a small town nestled among rolling hills, a story of extraordinary kindness and unexpected blessings was about to unfold. This is the tale of Jack Thompson, a poor handyman with a heart of gold whose selfless act would change his life forever. Subscribe to our channel to discover more inspiring stories like this one. Jack Thompson was a simple man, content with his modest life as a handyman in the quaint town of Millfield. He had a reputation for being skilled, reliable, and always willing to lend a helping hand to those in need. Despite his own financial struggles, Jack never hesitated to put others first. One warm summer morning, Jack received a call from Elizabeth. Liz Miller, a widow who lived on the outskirts of town. Liz's voice trembled as she explained that her home was in dire need of repairs, but she couldn't afford to pay for the work. Without a second thought, Jack assured her that he would be there to help, no matter the cost. When Jack arrived at Liz's home, his heart sank. The once charming house had fallen into disrepair since the passing of Liz's husband. The roof leaked, the windows were drafty, and the paint had long since faded. Liz greeted Jack with a grateful smile. Her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and relief. As Jack surveyed the extent of the work needed, he knew it would take days, if not weeks, to complete. But the sight of Liz's tired eyes and the weight of her grief compelled him to act. He promised her that he would do everything in his power to make her home a comfortable and safe haven once again. For the next several days, Jack worked tirelessly from sunrise to sunset. He mended the leaky roof, replaced the drafty windows, and gave the house a fresh coat of paint. Liz would often bring him homemade lemonade and sandwiches, expressing her gratitude for his kindness and dedication. As the repairs neared completion, Jack and Liz found themselves sharing stories and laughter over their midday meals. Jack learned about Liz's late husband, their love story, and the void his absence had left in her life. In turn, Jack shared his own struggles and dreams, finding comfort in Liz's gentle and understanding presence. On the final day of repairs, Jack stepped back to admire his handiwork. The once dilapidated house now stood proudly, its windows gleaming and its walls radiating warmth. Liz's eyes brimmed with tears of joy as she hugged Jack, thanking him for his selfless act of kindness. Jack waved off her praise, insisting that it was the least he could do. He handed her the keys to her revitalized home, refusing to accept any payment for his work. Liz protested, but Jack simply smiled and said, "Consider it a gift from one friend to another." As Jack drove away from Liz's house that evening, his heart was full. He knew that he had made a difference in Liz's life, and that knowledge alone was worth more than any amount of money. Little did he know that his act of kindness would soon set in motion a chain of events that would transform his own life in ways he never could have imagined. 2 days later, Jack was startled by the sound of a car pulling up in front of his modest home. He stepped outside, curious to see who had come to visit. To his surprise, a sleek black SUV was parked in his driveway, its windows tinted and its engine humming softly. As Jack approached the vehicle, the driver's door opened and a well-dressed man stepped out. He introduced himself as Simon Watkins, a lawyer from the city. Jack's mind raced with questions as he wondered what business a city lawyer could possibly have with a small-town handyman like himself. Simon greeted Jack with a warm smile and a firm handshake. He explained that he had been sent by an anonymous benefactor who had heard about Jack's selfless act of kindness towards Liz Miller. The benefactor, moved by Jack's generosity, had decided to reward him in a way that would change his life forever. Jack listened in disbelief as Simon revealed that the benefactor had set up a trust fund in Jack's name, with a sum of money that would allow him to pursue his dreams and live comfortably for the rest of his days. The lawyer handed Jack a thick envelope containing all the necessary documents and a heartfelt letter from the mysterious benefactor. With trembling hands, Jack opened the envelope and began to read the letter. Tears streamed down his face as he discovered that the benefactor was none other than Liz herself. In the letter, Liz expressed her deep gratitude for Jack's kindness and explained that she had come into a significant inheritance from her late husband's life insurance policy. She had decided to share her newfound wealth with the man who had shown her such compassion and generosity in her time of need. As the reality of the situation sank in, Jack found himself overcome with emotion. He had never dreamed that his simple act of kindness would be rewarded in such a profound and life-altering way. Simon, sensing Jack's overwhelming gratitude, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder and assured him that he deserved every bit of this incredible blessing. From that moment on, Jack's life took a new turn. With the financial security provided by the trust fund, he was able to expand his handyman business, hire a team of skilled workers, and take on larger projects that allowed him to make an even greater impact on his community. He never forgot the lesson he had learned from his experience with Liz, that a single act of kindness could ripple out and touch countless lives in ways he never could have imagined. As Jack's story spread throughout the town and beyond, it inspired others to follow in his footsteps. People began to look out for one another, offering help and support whenever they could. The town of Millfield became known as a place where kindness and compassion flourished, and Jack Thompson was celebrated as the humble hero who had started it all. In the years that followed, Jack and Liz remained close friends, their bond forged by the incredible journey they had shared. They often sat together on Liz's front porch, sipping lemonade and reflecting on the twists and turns that had brought them to this point. They marveled at the power of a simple act of kindness and the way it had transformed both of their lives. Jack's story serves as a powerful reminder that we all have the capacity to make a difference in the world, no matter how small our actions may seem. It is a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the incredible things that can happen when we open our hearts to others. As you go about your day, remember the story of Jack Thompson and the widow whose life he changed. Look for opportunities to show kindness and compassion to those around you, and never underestimate the impact that your actions can have. You never know when a simple gesture of kindness might set in motion a chain of events that will change someone's life, and perhaps even your own, forever. As the sun rose over the sleepy town of Millfield, Jack Thompson was already hard at work in his modest workshop. The hum of power tools and the scent of freshly cut wood filled the air as he carefully crafted a custom bookshelf for one of his clients. Jack took pride in his work, pouring his heart and soul into every project, no matter how big or small. Despite the early hour, Jack's mind was already preoccupied with the day ahead. He had a full schedule of repairs and renovations lined up, and he knew that every minute counted. As he finished sanding the final shelf, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow and answered, expecting to hear from one of his regular clients. Instead, he was greeted by the soft, trembling voice of an elderly woman. "Hello? Is this Jack Thompson, the handyman?" she asked, her tone laced with uncertainty. "Yes, ma'am, that's me," Jack replied, his curiosity piqued. "How can I help you today?" The woman introduced herself as Elizabeth Liz Miller, a widow who lived on the outskirts of town. She explained that her home was in desperate need of repairs, but she was on a fixed income and couldn't afford the high costs typically associated with such work. Liz's voice quivered as she described the leaky roof, the drafty windows, and the peeling paint that had once been a source of pride for her and her late husband. As Jack listened to Liz's story, his heart went out to her. He could hear the weariness in her voice and sense the weight of the burdens she carried. In that moment, Jack made a decision that would change the course of both their lives. Without hesitation, he assured Liz that he would be there to help, no matter the cost. "Mrs. Miller," Jack said, his voice filled with compassion, "I'll be over to take a look at your home this afternoon. And don't you worry about the money. We'll figure something out." Liz's relief was palpable, even through the phone. She thanked Jack profusely, her voice cracking with emotion as she expressed her gratitude for his kindness. Jack smiled, knowing that he had made the right decision. He had always believed that his skills were meant to be used for the greater good, and this was his chance to prove it. As he hung up the phone, Jack's mind raced with the logistics of taking on such a large project pro bono. He knew that it would mean long hours and sacrificing time with his own family, but he also knew that he couldn't turn his back on someone in need. With a determined set to his jaw, Jack began to gather his tools and prepare for the work ahead. When Jack arrived at Liz's home later that afternoon, he was struck by the state of disrepair that greeted him. The once charming farmhouse looked tired and worn, its paint faded and chipped, its roof sagging under the weight of years of neglect. As he stepped out of his truck, Liz emerged from the house, her face etched with lines of worry and fatigue.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
"Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice filled with gratitude, "I can't thank you enough for coming. I know my home isn't much to look at these days, but it means the world to me." Jack smiled warmly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Please, call me Jack. And don't you worry about a thing, Mrs. Miller. We'll have this place looking as good as new in no time." As he set to work assessing the damage, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose wash over him. He knew that this was more than just another job. It was a chance to make a real difference in someone's life. With each passing hour, he threw himself into the task at hand, determined to give Liz the home she deserved. As the sun began to set on that first day, Jack wiped the sweat from his brow and surveyed his progress. Though there was still much work to be done, he could already see the glimmer of hope returning to Liz's eyes. She stood on the porch, a tray of lemonade and sandwiches in hand, her face softened by the warm glow of the evening light. "I don't know how to thank you, Jack," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've given me a reason to smile again." Jack accepted the offered refreshments, his heart full with the knowledge that he was making a difference. "It's my pleasure, Mrs. Miller. Everyone deserves a safe and comfortable place to call home." In the days that followed, Jack worked tirelessly to bring Liz's home back to life. He replaced the leaky roof, sealed the drafty windows, and gave the walls a fresh coat of paint. He fixed the creaky stairs and the loose floorboards, ensuring that Liz would have a sturdy foundation beneath her feet. As he worked, Jack and Liz found themselves falling into an easy rhythm. They shared stories of their lives, their joys and their sorrows, finding common ground in the shared experience of loss and the resilience of the human spirit. Liz spoke of her late husband, a kind and gentle man who had been taken from her too soon. Jack, in turn, shared his own struggles, the challenges of running a small business, the sacrifices he had made to provide for his family. Through their conversations, a deep bond began to form between the handyman and the widow. It was a connection born of mutual respect and understanding, a recognition of the strength and courage that had brought them both to this moment. As the repairs neared completion, Liz's home began to take on a new life. The once tired and worn farmhouse now stood proud and strong, a testament to the power of kindness and the resilience of the human spirit. Jack stepped back to admire his handiwork, a sense of pride and accomplishment washing over him. Liz, too, was transformed by the experience. The weight of her grief seemed to lift with each passing day, replaced by a newfound sense of hope and possibility. She smiled more easily, her laughter ringing out across the yard as she and Jack shared a cup of tea on the porch. On the final day of repairs, Jack and Liz stood side by side, surveying the home that had brought them together. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the freshly painted walls and the neatly trimmed lawn. Liz turned to Jack, her eyes brimming with tears of gratitude. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "I can never repay you for what you've done. You've given me back my home, my life. I don't know how to thank you." Jack smiled, his own eyes misty with the weight of the moment. "You don't need to thank me, Mrs. Miller. Seeing you happy and at peace is all the thanks I need." As he packed up his tools and prepared to leave, Jack felt a sense of bittersweet accomplishment wash over him. He knew that his time with Liz had come to an end, but he also knew that the impact of his kindness would last a lifetime. With a final hug and a promise to stay in touch, Jack drove away from Liz's home, his heart full with the knowledge that he had made a real difference in someone's life. Little did he know that his own life was about to change in ways he never could have imagined. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Jack Thompson reflected on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. He had started out as just a simple handyman, but he had become so much more: a friend, a confidant, a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed so dark. And though he didn't know it yet, Jack's story was far from over. The ripples of his kindness were about to set in motion a chain of events that would transform not only his own life, but the lives of countless others. For in the end, it is the simple acts of compassion and generosity that have the power to change the world, one person at a time. As the weeks passed, the story of Jack Thompson's selfless act of kindness began to spread throughout the small town of Millfield. Neighbors whispered over garden fences, shopkeepers chatted with their customers, and even the local newspaper picked up on the heartwarming tale of the handyman who had gone above and beyond to help a widow in need. For Jack, however, life went on much as it always had. He continued to work long hours, taking on project after project, always striving to do his best for his clients. But even as he poured himself into his work, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed within him. The experience with Liz had touched him in a way that he couldn't quite explain, awakening a sense of purpose and meaning that he had never known before. One sunny afternoon, as Jack was working on a plumbing job at a local restaurant, he received an unexpected visitor. Ryan Davis, his best friend since childhood, stopped by the job site, a look of concern etched on his face. "Hey, Jack," Ryan said, his voice low and serious. "You got a minute? I need to talk to you about something." Jack wiped his hands on his jeans and nodded, sensing the urgency in his friend's tone. "Sure, Ryan. What's up?" Ryan glanced around, making sure they were alone before he spoke. "I've been hearing some things around town, Jack, about you and that widow you've been helping." Jack felt a flicker of unease in his chest. "What kind of things?" "People are talking, man. They're saying that you're spending an awful lot of time over there, that maybe there's something going on between you two." Jack's eyes widened in surprise. "What? No, Ryan, it's not like that at all. I'm just trying to help her out, that's all." Ryan held up his hands, a look of understanding on his face. "I know, Jack. I know you better than anyone. But you know how people can be. They see something they don't understand, and they start to talk." Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. He knew that Ryan was right. In a small town like Millfield, gossip spread like wildfire, and even the most innocent of actions could be twisted into something sinister. "I appreciate you looking out for me, Ryan," Jack said, his voice firm. "But I'm not going to stop helping Liz just because some people might get the wrong idea. She needs me, and I'm not going to turn my back on her." Ryan nodded, a look of admiration in his eyes. "I know you won't, Jack. That's just the kind of guy you are, but be careful, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt." Jack clasped his friend on the shoulder, a grateful smile on his face. "Thanks, Ryan. I'll keep that in mind." As Ryan walked away, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of unease settle over him. He had always tried to live his life with integrity, to do what was right, even when it wasn't easy. But now, faced with the prospect of losing his reputation, his livelihood, and even his friendships, he couldn't help but wonder if he had made the right choice. In the days that followed, Jack threw himself into his work with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that he couldn't control what people said about him, but he could control how he lived his life. And so he poured his heart and soul into every project, determined to make a difference in the lives of those he served. As he worked, he found himself thinking more and more about Liz. He wondered how she was doing, if she was feeling the weight of the rumors that swirled around them. He wanted to reach out to her, to reassure her that everything would be okay, but he knew that doing so would only fuel the flames of gossip. And so he kept his distance, even as his heart ached with the knowledge that she was alone and hurting. He told himself that it was for the best, that he was protecting her by staying away. But deep down, he knew that he was also protecting himself. As the weeks turned into months, Jack found himself growing more and more isolated. His once thriving business began to suffer as clients pulled away, unwilling to be associated with the handyman whose name was on everyone's lips. Even his own family began to distance themselves, afraid of being tainted by the scandal that seemed to follow him wherever he went. But through it all, Jack refused to give up. He clung to the memory of Liz's smile, to the knowledge that he had made a real difference in her life. And he held on to the hope that somehow, some way, the truth would come out and set him free. It was on a cold, rainy night in November that everything changed. Jack was working late in his workshop, trying to finish up a project that had been delayed by his dwindling client list. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and sending shivers down his spine. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. Jack froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't expecting anyone, and in his current state of mind, every unexpected visitor felt like a threat. Cautiously, he made his way to the door, his hand hovering over the handle. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever lay on the other side. But when he opened the door, he found himself face to face with the last person he ever expected to see. There, standing on his doorstep, was Liz Miller. Her face was pale and drawn, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She was shivering in the cold, her thin coat no match for the biting wind. "Jack," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I didn't know where else to go." Jack felt his heart break at the sight of her. He ushered her inside, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders and guiding her to a chair by the fire. "Liz," he said, his voice soft and gentle. "What happened? What's wrong?" She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a deep, aching sadness. "I couldn't take it anymore, Jack. The gossip, the rumors, the way people look at me when I walk down the street. I feel like I'm suffocating." Jack felt a surge of anger rise up within him. He had tried so hard to protect her from the ugliness of small-town politics, but in the end, he had only made things worse. "I'm so sorry, Liz," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I only wanted to help." She reached out and took his hand, her fingers cold and trembling. "I know, Jack, and you did help me, more than you could ever know." They sat there in silence for a long moment, the crackling of the fire the only sound in the room. Finally, Liz spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm leaving, Jack. I can't stay here anymore. I need to start over somewhere new, somewhere where people don't know me or my story." Jack felt his heart sink. He had always known that this day would come, but he had never imagined it would be like this. "Where will you go?" he asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. She shook her head, a sad smile on her face. "I don't know yet, but I know that I can't stay here." Jack nodded, his heart heavy with understanding. He knew that he couldn't ask her to stay, couldn't ask her to bear the weight of his own mistakes. And so, with a heavy heart, he helped her pack her bags and load them into her car. They stood together on the porch, the rain pouring down around them as they said their final goodbyes. "Thank you, Jack," Liz said, her voice thick with tears, "for everything." He pulled her into a tight hug, his own eyes stinging with unshed tears. "Take care of yourself, Liz, and remember, you always have a friend in me." She nodded, a watery smile on her face. And then, with one final wave, she climbed into her car and drove off into the night, leaving Jack alone on the porch, his heart aching with the weight of all that had been lost. But even as he watched her taillights disappear into the darkness, Jack knew that this was not the end of their story, for the ripples of his kindness had already been set in motion, and the world was about to change in ways that he never could have imagined. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, as Jack Thompson struggled to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. With Liz gone and his reputation in tatters, he found himself adrift in a sea of uncertainty, unsure of where to turn or what to do next. He threw himself into his work, taking on every job that came his way, no matter how small or menial. He worked long hours, often late into the night, trying to drown out the voice in his head that whispered of his failures and shortcomings. But even as he poured himself into his work, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The joy and satisfaction he had once found in his craft seemed to have vanished, replaced by a dull, aching emptiness that he couldn't quite name. It was on a warm spring day, as he was working on a leaky faucet in a client's kitchen, that Jack first noticed the strange sensation in his chest. It started as a slight pressure, a feeling of tightness that made it hard to breathe. At first, he dismissed it as nothing more than stress and overwork. But as the days passed, the feeling only grew stronger, until it became a constant companion, a nagging reminder of the toll his life had taken on his body and soul. Jack tried to ignore it, to push through the pain and discomfort as he always had. But deep down, he knew that something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, a sense of foreboding that he couldn't quite shake. It was his sister, Amanda, who finally convinced him to see a doctor. She had stopped by his workshop one afternoon, her face etched with concern as she watched him struggle to catch his breath after a simple task. "Jack," she said, her voice soft but firm, "you need to take care of yourself. You can't keep going on like this." He had tried to brush her off, to assure her that he was fine, but the look in her eyes told him that she saw right through his bravado. And so, reluctantly, he had made an appointment with his doctor, a kind-faced man named Dr. Patel, who had been treating his family for years. The day of the appointment arrived, and Jack found himself sitting in the waiting room, his heart pounding in his chest as he filled out the necessary paperwork. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, that his life was about to be turned upside down once again. When Dr. Patel finally called him back into the exam room, Jack tried to put on a brave face. He answered the doctor's questions as best he could, describing the tightness in his chest and the shortness of breath that had become his constant companions. Dr. Patel listened intently, his brow furrowed with concern. He ordered a series of tests, including an EKG and a chest X-ray, and told Jack to come back in a week for the results. The week that followed was one of the longest of Jack's life. He tried to keep himself busy, to distract himself from the gnawing fear that ate away at his insides. But no matter what he did, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. When the day of the follow-up appointment finally arrived, Jack found himself once again sitting in Dr. Patel's office, his hands clenched tightly in his lap as he waited for the doctor to speak. Dr. Patel cleared his throat, his expression grave as he looked down at the papers in front of him. "Jack," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news." Jack felt his heart skip a beat, his mouth suddenly dry as he tried to swallow past the lump in his throat. "The tests have shown that you have a serious heart condition," Dr. Patel continued, his eyes filled with sympathy. "It's called cardiomyopathy, and it means that your heart muscle has become weakened and enlarged." Jack felt the world tilt around him, his vision blurring as he tried to make sense of the doctor's words. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Patel sighed, his expression somber. "It means that your heart is not pumping blood as efficiently as it should be. This can lead to a range of symptoms, including shortness of breath, fatigue, and chest pain." Jack nodded, his mind reeling as he tried to process the information. "So what do I do now?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Dr. Patel leaned forward, his hands clasped in front of him. "There are treatments available, Jack, medications, that can help manage your symptoms and improve your quality of life. But I won't lie to you. This is a serious condition, and it will require significant lifestyle changes." Jack felt a wave of panic wash over him, his chest tightening as he struggled to breathe. "Lifestyle changes," he repeated, his voice hoarse. Dr. Patel nodded, his expression sympathetic. "You'll need to make some changes to your diet and exercise routine. You may need to cut back on your work hours and avoid any strenuous activities that put too much strain on your heart." Jack felt his world crumbling around him, the reality of his situation sinking in like a lead weight in his chest. "But my work," he started, his voice trailing off as he struggled to find the words. Dr. Patel reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, his touch gentle but firm. "I know it won't be easy, Jack, but your health has to come first. You have people who care about you, who need you. You have to take care of yourself so that you can be there for them." Jack nodded, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. He knew that the doctor was right, that he had to make some changes if he wanted to have any hope of a future. And so, with a heavy heart, he left the doctor's office that day, his mind swirling with 1,000 questions and fears. In the weeks that followed, Jack struggled to come to terms with his new reality. He cut back on his work hours, handing off some of his clients to other local handymen. He started taking long walks in the evenings, trying to build up his stamina and strengthen his heart. But even as he made these changes, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The joy and purpose he had once found in his work seemed to have vanished, replaced by a sense of emptiness and despair. It was during one of these long walks that Jack first noticed the small, nondescript envelope tucked under the windshield wiper of his truck. At first, he thought it was just another flyer or advertisement, something to be tossed in the trash without a second thought. But as he drew closer, he noticed that the envelope had his name written on it in a neat, precise hand. His curiosity piqued. He plucked the envelope from the windshield and tore it open, his heart pounding in his chest as he unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. The letter was short and to the point, but its words struck Jack like a bolt of lightning. It was from a lawyer in the city, a man named Simon Watkins, who claimed to represent an anonymous benefactor. "Dear Mr. Thompson," the letter read, "I am writing to inform you that you have been named as the recipient of a substantial financial gift from an anonymous donor. The details of this gift will be discussed in person at a meeting to be held at my office next Friday at 2 p.m. Please confirm your attendance by phone or email at your earliest convenience." Jack stared at the letter in disbelief, his mind reeling as he tried to make sense of its contents. Who could possibly want to give him money? And why now, when he was at his lowest point? For a moment he considered throwing the letter away, dismissing it as some kind of scam or practical joke. But something stopped him, a small, insistent voice in the back of his mind that whispered of hope and possibility. And so, with trembling hands, he folded the letter and tucked it into his pocket, his heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. He didn't know what the future held, or what this mysterious gift might mean for his life. But he knew one thing for certain. The ripples of his kindness were still spreading even now when he thought all hope was lost. And somehow, some way, he knew that everything was about to change once again. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jack found himself standing outside the imposing glass doors of Simon Watkins' law firm, his heart pounding in his chest as he tried to summon the courage to go inside. He had spent the past week in a state of constant anxiety, his mind swirling with questions and doubts. Who was this anonymous benefactor, and why had they chosen him of all people? What if this was all some kind of cruel joke, a prank designed to give him false hope in his darkest hour? But even as these thoughts raced through his mind, Jack knew that he had to see this through. He had come too far, had endured too much, to turn back now. With a deep breath, he pushed open the doors and stepped inside, his footsteps echoing on the polished marble floor. The receptionist greeted him with a polite smile, directing him to a plush waiting area where he could sit and wait for Mr. Watkins. As he sat there, his leg bouncing nervously, Jack couldn't help but feel out of place. He was a simple man, a handyman who had never set foot in a place like this before. The sleek, modern decor and the well-dressed professionals who bustled past him only served to heighten his sense of unease. Just as he was beginning to consider, bolting for the door, a tall, distinguished-looking man emerged from one of the offices and strode towards him, his hand outstretched in greeting. "Mr. Thompson," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. "I'm Simon Watkins. Thank you so much for coming." Jack stood up, his own hand shaking slightly as he shook the lawyer's hand. "Thanks for having me," he said, his voice gruff with nerves. "I have to admit, I'm still not entirely sure why I'm here." Mr. Watkins smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Of course," he said. "Please come with me. We have much to discuss." He led Jack down a long, carpeted hallway, past a series of closed doors, until they reached a spacious corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. As Jack settled into one of the plush leather chairs in front of Mr. Watkins' desk, he couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation wash over him. Whatever this was about, he knew that it was going to change his life forever. Mr. Watkins cleared his throat, his expression growing serious as he looked at Jack from across the desk. "Mr. Thompson," he began, his voice measured and calm, "I know that you must have many questions about why you are here today, and I want to assure you that everything I'm about to tell you is completely true and completely confidential." Jack nodded, his throat suddenly dry as he tried to swallow, past the lump in his throat. "As I mentioned in my letter," Mr. Watkins continued, "you have been named as the recipient of a substantial financial gift from an anonymous donor. This donor has been following your story for some time now and has been deeply moved by your kindness and generosity towards others, even in the face of your own struggles." Jack felt his breath catch in his chest, his mind reeling as he tried to process the lawyer's words. Someone had been following his story, someone had been moved by his actions. "I don't understand," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Who is this donor, and why would they want to give me money?" Mr. Watkins smiled, his expression sympathetic. "I know it's a lot to take in," he said, "but this donor wishes to remain anonymous. They believe that true generosity comes from the heart, not from a desire for recognition or acclaim." He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a thick, manila envelope, placing it on the desk in front of Jack. "Inside this envelope," he said, "you will find a cashier's check for $500,000 made out in your name. This money is yours, Mr. Thompson, to use however you see fit." Whether you choose to pay off your medical bills, start a new business, or simply take some time to rest and heal, this gift is a testament to the impact that your kindness has had on the world around you. Jack felt his heart skip a beat, his eyes widening in disbelief as he stared at the envelope in front of him. $500,000. It was more money than he had ever seen in his life, more money than he could ever hope to earn on his own. "I don't know what to say," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "I don't deserve this. I haven't done anything special." Mr. Watkins leaned forward, his expression intense. "But that's just it, Mr. Thompson. You have done something special. You have shown the world that kindness and compassion still exist, even in the darkest of times. You have given hope to those who had lost it, and you have touched the lives of countless people along the way." He pushed the envelope towards Jack, his eyes shining with sincerity. "This gift is not a reward, Mr. Thompson. It is a testament to the power of your own heart and to the impact that one person can have on the world around them." With trembling hands, Jack reached out and took the envelope, his fingers closing around the thick paper as he tried to wrap his mind around the magnitude of what was happening. He thought back to all the struggles he had faced over the past year, all the pain and heartache that had threatened to break him. He thought of Liz and the way her smile had lit up his world, even in the darkest of times. And he thought of the future, of the possibilities that now lay before him, thanks to the generosity of a stranger who had seen something in him that he had never seen in himself. Tears welled up in his eyes, his chest tight with emotion as he looked up at Mr. Watkins, a grateful smile spreading across his face. "Thank you," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Thank you for everything." Mr. Watkins smiled, his own eyes glistening with tears as he reached out and shook Jack's hand once more. "You're welcome, Mr. Thompson, and thank you for reminding us all of the power of kindness and compassion in this world." As Jack left the law firm that day, the envelope clutched tightly in his hand. He felt a sense of warmth and hope wash over him, the likes of which he had never experienced before. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, but he also knew that he was not alone, that there were people in this world who believed in him, who saw the goodness in his heart and the strength of his spirit. And so, with a deep breath and a determined step, Jack Thompson set out into the world once more, ready to face whatever lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that kindness and compassion could move mountains, and that even the smallest acts of love could change the world in ways he never could have imagined. As he walked down the busy city street, the sun shining down on his face and the bustle of the crowd swirling around him, Jack felt a sense of peace wash over him, a sense of purpose and meaning that he had never known before. He didn't know what the future held or where this incredible gift would take him, but he knew one thing for certain. The ripples of his kindness were still spreading even now, and the world would never be the same because of it. With a smile on his face and a spring in his step, Jack Thompson walked on, ready to embrace the new chapter in his life and to see where the winding road of kindness and compassion would lead him next. The sun was setting over the small town of Millfield as Jack Thompson pulled into the driveway of his modest home, his mind still reeling from the incredible events of the day. As he stepped out of his truck, the envelope clutched tightly in his hand. He couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief wash over him. Had it all been a dream? Had he really just been given a gift of $500,000, no strings attached? But as he ran his fingers over the thick, heavy paper of the envelope, he knew that it was real, that this was really happening, and that his life was about to change in ways he never could have imagined. With a deep breath, he walked up the steps to his front door, his heart pounding in his chest as he tried to wrap his mind around the magnitude of what had just happened. As he stepped inside, he was greeted by the familiar sight of his small, cluttered living room. the couch worn and sagging from years of use, the coffee table littered with old magazines and empty coffee cups. But somehow everything looked different now. The colors seemed brighter, the air seemed clearer, as if the world itself had shifted on its axis, revealing a new reality that he had never seen before. With trembling hands, he set the envelope down on the coffee table, his eyes fixed on the plain, unassuming paper as if it held the secrets of the universe. And in a way, it did, because inside that envelope lay the key to a new life, a new future, one that he had never dared to dream of before. He thought back to all the struggles he had faced over the past year, all the pain and heartache that had threatened to break him. He thought of the long, lonely nights spent tossing and turning in his bed, his mind haunted by the memories of all that he had lost. And he thought of Liz, of the way her smile had lit up his world, even in the darkest of times, the way her laughter had filled his heart with joy, the way her kindness had touched his soul in ways he never could have imagined. He knew that he owed her everything, that without her, he never would have found the strength to keep going, to keep fighting, even when all hope seemed lost. And now, thanks to the incredible generosity of a stranger, he had the chance to pay it forward, to make a difference in the world in a way that he never could have before. With a deep breath, he reached for the envelope, his fingers trembling slightly as he tore open the flap and pulled out the stack of papers inside. And there it was, a cashier's check for $500,000, made out to Jack Thompson with no strings attached. He stared at the check for a long moment, his eyes welling up with tears as he tried to comprehend the enormity of what he was seeing. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything, the moment that would set him on a new path, a new journey, one that he had never dared to dream of before. And as he sat there, the check clutched tightly in his hands, he knew that he had a choice to make. He could take the money and run, could use it to build a new life for himself, far away from the pain and heartache of the past. Or he could use it to make a difference, to pay forward the kindness and generosity that had been shown to him, to touch the lives of others in the same way that Liz had touched his. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that he had been given a gift, a chance to make a real difference in the world, and he wasn't going to let that chance slip away. With a deep breath, he stood up, the check still clutched tightly in his hand, as he walked over to the window and looked out at the quiet, peaceful street outside. And in that moment, he made a decision. He was going to use this money to make a difference, to build a new life not just for himself, but for all the people in his community who were struggling, who needed help and support just like he had. He thought of all the ways he could use the money to make a real impact, to touch the lives of others in a meaningful way. Maybe he could start a non-profit organization, one that would provide support and resources for people in need. Or maybe he could use the money to fund scholarships, to help young people from disadvantaged backgrounds get the education and opportunities they deserved. The possibilities were endless, and as he stood there, looking out at the world with new eyes, he felt a sense of excitement and purpose wash over him, a sense of hope and possibility that he had never known before. And so, with a deep breath and a determined step, Jack Thompson set out to make a difference, to use the incredible gift he had been given to touch the lives of others in ways he never could have imagined. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, that there would be challenges and setbacks along the way, but he also knew that he had been given a second chance, a chance to make a real difference in the world, and he wasn't going to let that chance slip away. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Jack threw himself into his new mission with a passion and dedication that he had never known before. He reached out to local community organizations and non-profits, offering his support and resources wherever he could. He volunteered his time and energy, working tirelessly to make a difference in the lives of those who needed it most. And slowly but surely, he began to see the impact of his efforts. He saw the smiles on the faces of the children who received new school supplies and backpacks, the tears of gratitude in the eyes of the families who received food and clothing when they had none. He saw the hope and the joy that his kindness and generosity brought to the lives of others, and he knew that he had found his true calling, his true purpose in life. And through it all, he never forgot about Liz, about the woman who had touched his life in ways he never could have imagined. He thought of her often, of the way her smile had lit up his world, of the way her kindness had saved him from the depths of despair. He knew that he owed her everything, that without her, he never would have found the strength to keep going, to keep fighting, even when all hope seemed lost. And so, he made a promise to himself, a promise to honor her memory, to carry on her legacy of kindness and compassion, to touch the lives of others in the same way that she had touched his. And as he looked out at the world, at the community that he had helped to build, at the lives that he had touched and the hearts that he had healed, he knew that he had found his true purpose, his true calling in life. He had been given a gift, a chance to make a real difference in the world, and he had seized that chance with both hands, had poured his heart and soul into making the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. And he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter what obstacles he might face, he would never give up, never stop fighting for what he believed in. Because he had been touched by the power of kindness, had been transformed by the incredible generosity of a stranger, and he knew that he had a responsibility to pay that kindness forward, to make the world a better place for all those who came after him. And so, with a heart full of love and a spirit full of hope, Jack Thompson continued on his journey, continued to touch the lives of others in ways he never could have imagined, continued to be a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope and compassion in a world that so desperately needed it. He had been given a second chance, a chance to make a real difference, and he was going to make the most of it, one day at a time, one act of kindness at a time. As the reality of his newfound wealth began to sink in, Jack found himself overwhelmed with a whirlwind of emotions. The initial shock and disbelief slowly gave way to a profound sense of gratitude and humility. He couldn't help but feel undeserving of such an incredible gift, yet at the same time, he was filled with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Late one evening, as he sat at his kitchen table, the check laid out before him, Jack allowed himself a moment to fully process the magnitude of what had happened. Tears welled up in his eyes as he thought about the anonymous donor who had seen something special in him, something worth investing in. He wondered about their story, their motivations, and what had inspired them to make such a selfless and generous gesture. As he wiped away the tears, Jack's thoughts turned to Liz. He couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness and regret when he thought about how much she had struggled, how hard life had been for her in the wake of her husband's passing. He wished that he could have done more to help her, to ease her burdens and bring a smile back to her face. But even in the midst of his sorrow, Jack felt a flicker of hope. He realized that this incredible gift was not just about him, but about the power of kindness and compassion to change lives. He thought about all the people in his community who were struggling just like Liz had been, all the families who were facing hardship and adversity with no one to turn to for help. And in that moment, Jack knew what he had to do. He knew that he had been given this money for a reason, that he had a responsibility to use it to make a difference in the world. He thought about all the ways he could help, all the programs and initiatives he could start to support those in need. Excitement began to bubble up inside him as he considered the possibilities. He could start a foundation to provide grants and scholarships for students from low-income families. He could partner with local non-profits to fund job training programs and affordable housing initiatives. He could create a community center that offered free classes and workshops, a safe and welcoming space where people could come together to learn, grow, and support one another. The more he thought about it, the more inspired he became. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that he had been given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a real difference, to touch the lives of others in a meaningful and lasting way. As the night wore on, Jack found himself poring over his ideas, jotting down notes and sketching out plans. He felt a sense of purpose and passion that he had never known before, a deep and unshakable conviction that this was what he was meant to do with his life. And through it all, he couldn't help but think of Liz. He knew that she would be proud of him, that she would have wanted him to use this money to help others just as she had helped him. He could almost hear her voice in his head, encouraging him to follow his heart and trust in the power of kindness. Finally, as the first rays of dawn began to peek through the windows, Jack sat back in his chair, a sense of peace and contentment washing over him. He knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be setbacks and challenges to face. But he also knew that he was not alone, that he had the love and support of his community behind him. With a deep breath, he folded up the check and tucked it away in a safe place. He knew that he would need to be careful and strategic in how he used the money, that he would need to seek out advice and guidance from those with more experience and expertise than he had. But for now, he simply allowed himself to bask in the warmth and light of this incredible moment. He had been given a gift beyond his wildest dreams, a chance to make a real and lasting difference in the world, and he knew that he would not let this opportunity pass him by. As he stood up and stretched, his body aching from the long night of planning and dreaming, Jack felt a renewed sense of energy and purpose coursing through his veins. He knew that the future was uncertain, that there would be twists and turns along the way. But he also knew that he was ready for whatever lay ahead, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that this new chapter in his life would bring. With a smile on his face and a spring in his step, Jack headed out into the early morning light, ready to face the day and all the possibilities that it held. He knew that he had been touched by something special, something that had the power to transform not just his own life, but the lives of countless others. And as he walked through the quiet streets of his hometown, he couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude and wonder wash over him. He had been given a second chance, a chance to make a real difference in the world, and he knew that he would not waste a single moment of this precious gift. In the days and weeks that followed, Jack threw himself into his new mission with a passion and dedication that surprised even himself. He reached out to local community leaders and non-profit organizations seeking their advice and partnership. In his efforts to make a difference, he attended meetings and workshops, learning everything he could about the challenges facing his community and the best ways to address them. He pored over budgets and grant applications, working tirelessly to secure the funding and resources he needed to bring his vision to life. And slowly but surely, he began to see the fruits of his labors. He watched as the first group of students received their scholarships, their faces beaming with pride and gratitude. He saw the joy and relief on the faces of families who moved into the affordable housing units he had helped to fund, their children running and playing in the safe and welcoming spaces he had helped to create. He felt the warmth and love of his community rallying around him, supporting him in his efforts and joining him in his mission to make a difference. And through it all, he never forgot about Liz, about the woman who had touched his life in ways he could never fully express. He thought of her often, of the way her smile had lit up even the darkest of rooms, of the way her kindness had saved him from the depths of despair. And he knew that everything he was doing, every life he touched, and every heart he healed, was a testament to her legacy, to the love and compassion she had shown him when he needed it most. As the months turned into years, Jack watched as his community began to transform before his very eyes. He saw hope and opportunity blossoming in places where there had once been only despair and hardship. He saw people coming together, supporting one another and working towards a common goal of building a better, brighter future for all. And through it all, he felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that he had never known before. He knew that he had found his calling, his true purpose in life. And he knew that he would never stop fighting for what he believed in, never stop working to make the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. As he looked out at the community he had helped to build, at the lives he had touched, and the hearts he had healed, Jack felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over him. He knew that he had been given an incredible gift, a chance to make a real and lasting difference in the world. And he knew that he would cherish this gift for the rest of his days, would hold it close to his heart and use it to light the way for others, just as Liz had done for him. For in the end, he knew that the true power of kindness lay not in the grand gestures or the big moments, but in the small, everyday acts of love and compassion that had the power to change lives and transform the world one heart at a time. As the years passed and the impact of Jack's work continued to grow, he found himself reflecting more and more on the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. He often thought back to that fateful day when he had first received the anonymous gift, the moment that had changed his life forever. He remembered the overwhelming surge of emotions that had washed over him as he sat at his kitchen table, staring down at the check that represented more money than he had ever seen in his life. He remembered the tears that had streamed down his face as he thought about the incredible generosity and compassion of the anonymous donor, the person who had seen something special in him and had chosen to invest in his future. But most of all, he remembered the profound sense of purpose and determination that had filled his heart in that moment. The unshakable conviction that he had been given this money for a reason, that he had a responsibility to use it to make a difference in the world. As he sat in his office one afternoon, surrounded by the plans and blueprints for his latest project, Jack found himself lost in thought, reflecting on the incredible journey that had led him to this moment. He thought about all the challenges and obstacles he had faced along the way, all the doubts and fears that had threatened to hold him back. He thought about the long hours and sleepless nights he had spent poring over budgets and grant applications, the endless meetings and negotiations with community leaders and government officials. But through it all, he had never once wavered in his commitment to his mission, never once lost sight of the incredible opportunity that had been given to him. He had pushed himself harder than he ever had before, had dug deeper and fought harder than he ever thought possible. And slowly but surely, he had begun to see the fruits of his labors. He had watched as his community began to transform before his very eyes, as hope and opportunity took root in places where there had once been only despair and hardship. He had seen the joy and gratitude on the faces of the people whose lives he had touched, the families who had been given a second chance, the children who had been given the opportunity to dream big and reach for the stars. And through it all, he had felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that he had never known before. He had discovered a deep and abiding passion for service, a love for his community, and a commitment to making the world a better place. As he sat there, lost in thought, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. He knew that he had been touched by something special, something that had the power to transform not just his own life, but the lives of countless others. And he knew that he owed it all to the incredible kindness and generosity of a single person, the anonymous donor who had seen something in him that he had never seen in himself. With a deep breath, Jack stood up from his desk and walked over to the window, looking out at the bustling streets of his hometown. He watched as people hurried by, going about their daily lives, each one carrying their own hopes and dreams, their own struggles and triumphs. And in that moment, he felt a profound sense of connection to them all, a deep and abiding love for the community that had given him so much. He knew that he was just one person, that his efforts were just a small drop in the vast ocean of need and suffering that existed in the world. But he also knew that every drop counted, that every small act of kindness and compassion had the power to ripple outwards, to touch lives and change hearts in ways that could never be fully measured or understood. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose and determination, Jack turned back to his work, ready to face whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. He knew that the road would not be easy, that there would be setbacks and obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that he was not alone, that he had the love and support of his community behind him, that he had been given an incredible gift and a sacred trust, one that he would cherish and honor for the rest of his days. As the sun began to set outside his window, casting a warm, golden glow over the city streets, Jack felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over him. He knew that he had found his calling, his true purpose in life. And he knew that he would never stop fighting for what he believed in, never stop working to build a better, brighter future for all. For he had been touched by the power of kindness, had been given a chance to make a real and lasting difference in the world. And he would not let that chance slip away, would not rest until he had done everything in his power to create a world where every person had the opportunity to thrive, to live a life of dignity and purpose, filled with love and hope and joy. As he turned back to his work, his heart full of gratitude and determination, Jack knew that the journey ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be challenges and obstacles at every turn. But he also knew that he was ready for whatever lay ahead, ready to embrace the twists and turns of the road with open arms and an open heart. For he had been given an incredible gift, a chance to touch the lives of others in ways he never could have imagined, and he would spend the rest of his days honoring that gift, working tirelessly to build a better world, one small act of kindness at a time. He would be a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope and compassion in a world that so desperately needed it. And he would never forget the incredible kindness and generosity that had brought him to this point. The anonymous donor who had seen something special in him and had chosen to invest in his future. For he knew that their gift had not just changed his life, but had set in motion a chain reaction of love and compassion that would continue to ripple outwards, touching lives and transforming hearts for generations to come. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit full of hope, Jack continued on his journey, ready to face whatever lay ahead, ready to make the most of every moment and every opportunity that came his way. For he had been given a second chance, a chance to make a real and lasting difference in the world, and he would not waste a single moment of this precious gift, would not rest until he had fulfilled the sacred trust that had been placed in his hands. With a smile on his face and a spring in his step, Jack turned back to his work, his heart full of love and his mind full of dreams. And he knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would never lose sight of what truly mattered. Never forget the incredible power of kindness and compassion to change lives and transform the world. For he had been touched by something special, something that had the power to light up even the darkest of nights. And he would spend the rest of his days sharing that light with others, building a brighter, more beautiful world, one small act of love at a time. As the impact of Jack's work continued to grow, he found himself overwhelmed with a sense of gratitude and humility. He knew that none of this would have been possible without the incredible generosity of the anonymous donor, and he felt a deep sense of responsibility to honor their gift in every way possible. One evening, as he sat in his living room, surrounded by the warm glow of lamplight, Jack found himself thinking about the donor once again. He wondered who they were. What had motivated them to make such an incredible gesture of kindness and compassion? He thought about all the ways in which their gift had changed his life, had given him the opportunity to make a real and lasting difference in the world. And he knew that he wanted to find a way to thank them, to express his gratitude for all that they had done. But how could he thank someone he had never met? Someone whose identity was a mystery to him. How could he let them know just how much their kindness had meant to him, how deeply it had touched his heart and transformed his life? As he sat there, lost in thought, Jack's eyes fell upon a framed photo on the mantelpiece. It was a picture of his sister, Amanda, taken on the day she had graduated from college. She was beaming with pride and joy, her eyes shining with the promise of a bright and beautiful future. Jack smiled softly as he remembered that day, the way Amanda had hugged him tightly and whispered in his ear, "I couldn't have done this without you, Jack. You've always been there for me, always believed in me. I love you so much." And in that moment, Jack knew what he had to do. He knew that he needed to share his story with Amanda, to tell her about the incredible gift he had received and the work he was doing to honor it. With a sense of excitement and purpose, Jack reached for his phone and dialed Amanda's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and cheerful as always. "Jack, it's so good to hear from you. How are you doing?" Jack smiled, feeling a surge of love and affection for his sister. "I'm doing well, Amanda. Really well, actually. I have some incredible news to share with you." Amanda's voice grew curious, tinged with a hint of concern. "What is it, Jack? Is everything okay?" Jack took a deep breath, feeling a sudden rush of emotion as he thought about all that had happened. "Everything is more than okay, Amanda. It's amazing. I've been given an incredible gift, one that has changed my life in ways I never could have imagined." And with that, Jack began to tell his story, pouring out his heart to his sister as he had never done before. He told her about the anonymous donor, about the incredible generosity and compassion that had touched his life. He told her about the work he was doing, about the scholarships and grants and community programs he had started, about the lives he had touched and the hearts he had healed. As he spoke, Jack could hear the wonder and amazement in Amanda's voice, could feel the love and pride radiating through the phone. She listened intently, asking questions and offering words of encouragement and support. And when he had finished, when he had poured out every last detail of his incredible journey, Amanda was silent for a long moment, her voice thick with emotion when she finally spoke. "Jack, I am so incredibly proud of you," she said, her words filled with love and admiration. "What you've done, what you're doing, it's amazing. You're changing lives, making a real difference in the world, and I know that Mom and Dad would be so proud of you too." Jack felt tears welling up in his eyes at the mention of their parents, at the thought of how much they would have loved to see the work he was doing. "I wish they were here to see it," he said softly, his voice trembling with emotion. "I wish I could tell them about all of this, could share this incredible journey with them." Amanda's voice was gentle, filled with understanding and compassion. "They are here, Jack. They're watching over you, guiding you every step of the way. And I know that they're smiling down on you now, so proud of the man you've become and the work you're doing." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of peace and comfort wash over him at his sister's words. He knew that she was right, that his parents were with him in spirit, cheering him on from above. And as he sat there, talking and laughing with Amanda, sharing stories and memories of their childhood together, Jack felt a deep sense of connection and love for his sister, a bond that had only grown stronger with time. He knew that he was blessed to have her in his life, to have someone who believed in him and supported him unconditionally. And he knew that he wanted to share this incredible journey with her, to have her by his side as he continued to work towards building a better, brighter future for all. As the conversation drew to a close, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination filling his heart. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that he was not alone, that he had the love and support of his family and his community behind him. And he knew that, together, they could achieve anything, could build a world where every person had the opportunity to thrive and flourish, to live a life of dignity and purpose. With a final word of thanks and a promise to keep in touch, Jack ended the call with Amanda, feeling a sense of warmth and gratitude filling his heart. He knew that he had been given an incredible gift, not just in the form of the anonymous donation, but in the love and support of his sister and all those who believed in him. And he knew that he would spend the rest of his days honoring that gift, working tirelessly to build a better world, one small act of kindness at a time. He would be a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope and compassion in a world that so desperately needed it. As he sat there, surrounded by the warm glow of lamplight and the love of his family, Jack felt a sense of peace and purpose wash over him. He knew that the journey ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be setbacks and challenges at every turn. But he also knew that he was ready for whatever lay ahead, ready to embrace the twists and turns of the road with open arms and an open heart. For he had been given an incredible opportunity, a chance to touch the lives of others in ways he never could have imagined. And he would not let that opportunity slip away, would not rest until he had done everything in his power to create a world where every person had the chance to live a life of meaning and purpose, filled with love and hope and joy. With a heart full of gratitude and a spirit full of determination, Jack stood up from his chair, ready to face the day and all the possibilities that lay ahead. He knew that the future was bright, that there was so much good yet to be done in the world. And he knew that with the love and support of his family and his community, he could achieve anything, could build a brighter, more beautiful world, one small act of love at a time. For he had been touched by something special, something that had the power to light up even the darkest of nights. And he would spend the rest of his days sharing that light with others, building a legacy of kindness and compassion that would endure long after he was gone. With a smile on his face and a spring in his step, Jack stepped out into the world, ready to embrace all that lay ahead, ready to make the most of every precious moment and every incredible opportunity that came his way. For he knew that life was a gift, a precious and fragile thing that was meant to be cherished and celebrated. And he would spend the rest of his days living that truth, sharing his love and his light with all those whose lives he touched. As the years passed and Jack's work continued to flourish, he found himself thinking more and more about the anonymous donor who had made it all possible. He couldn't help but wonder who they were, what had motivated them to make such an incredible gesture of kindness and generosity. He had always hoped that someday he would have the chance to meet them, to look them in the eye and express his deepest gratitude for all that they had done. But as time went on, he began to realize that this might never happen, that the donor's identity might remain a mystery forever. And yet, even as he grappled with this realization, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was connected to this person in some deep and profound way. He felt a sense of kinship with them, a bond that transcended time and distance and circumstance. He knew that even if he never had the chance to meet them face to face, he would always carry a piece of them with him, would always be grateful for the incredible gift they had given him. And so, on a warm summer evening, as he sat on the porch of his home watching the sun dip below the horizon in a blaze of golden light, Jack made a decision. He would write a letter to the anonymous donor, a letter expressing all the gratitude and appreciation he felt in his heart. He knew that the chances of the letter ever reaching its intended recipient were slim, that it might end up lost in the vast expanse of the postal system, never to be seen or read by anyone. But he also knew that he needed to do this, needed to put his feelings into words, to give voice to the incredible impact that this person's kindness had had on his life. And so, with a sense of purpose and determination, Jack went inside and sat down at his desk, pulling out a sheet of paper and a pen. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment as he gathered his thoughts, and then, slowly and carefully, he began to write, pouring out his heart onto the page in a flood of emotion and gratitude. "Dear anonymous donor," he began, his hand trembling slightly as he formed the words. "I know that I may never have the chance to meet you face to face, to look you in the eye and express my deepest thanks for all that you have done. But I hope that somehow this letter will find its way to you, will let you know just how much your incredible generosity has meant to me and to so many others." Jack paused for a moment, feeling a lump forming in his throat as he thought about all the lives that had been touched by this person's kindness, all the hearts that had been healed, and the dreams that had been made possible. "When I first received your gift," he continued, his voice thick with emotion, "I was overwhelmed with a sense of gratitude and humility. I couldn't believe that someone would be so generous, so selfless, as to give so much to a complete stranger. But as I began to use the money to make a difference in my community, as I saw the impact that it was having on so many lives, I began to realize that your gift was about so much more than just the money itself. It was about the power of kindness, the incredible ripple effect that one small act of compassion can have on the world. It was about the way that we are all connected, all part of the same human family, bound together by the ties of love and empathy and compassion." Jack felt tears welling up in his eyes as he wrote, his heart overflowing with gratitude and love for this incredible person who had changed his life in ways he never could have imagined. "I want you to know," he wrote, his hand shaking with emotion, "that your gift has not just changed my life, but the lives of countless others. It has given hope to those who had lost it, has provided opportunities to those who never dreamed they were possible, and it has inspired me to be a better person, to live my life in service to others, to always strive to make the world a little bit brighter, a little bit more beautiful, with every small act of kindness and compassion." Jack paused for a moment, taking a deep breath as he tried to find the words to express the depth of his gratitude, the incredible impact that this person's generosity had had on his life. "I know that I can never fully repay you for what you have done," he wrote, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I promise you this, I will spend the rest of my days honoring your gift, working tirelessly to build a better world, one small act of love at a time. I will be a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope and compassion in a world that so desperately needs it, and I will always carry you with me, in my heart and in my thoughts, grateful for the incredible blessing you have given me." With a final word of thanks, Jack signed his name at the bottom of the page, folding the letter carefully and placing it in an envelope. He knew that the chances of it ever reaching its intended recipient were slim, but somehow that didn't matter. What mattered was the act of writing it, the chance to express the incredible gratitude and love he felt in his heart. What mattered was the way that this person's kindness had touched his life, had given him the chance to make a real and lasting difference in the world. And so, with a sense of peace and purpose, Jack sealed the envelope and placed it in the mailbox, sending it out into the world with a silent prayer of thanks. He knew that wherever this person was, whatever their story might be, they had made an incredible impact on his life and on the lives of so many others. And he knew that he would always be grateful for that, would always carry a piece of them with him, no matter where his journey might take him. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the world grew quiet and still, Jack sat on his porch, lost in thought. He thought about all the incredible people he had met over the years, all the lives he had touched and the hearts he had healed. He thought about the anonymous donor, the incredible act of kindness that had set his life on a new and beautiful path. And he thought about the future, about all the possibilities that lay ahead, all the good that was yet to be done in the world. And he knew, with a certainty that filled his heart and soul, that he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. He knew that no matter what challenges or obstacles lay ahead, he would always have the love and support of his community, the strength and resilience of his own spirit to guide him through. With a smile on his face and a heart full of gratitude, Jack stood up from his chair and walked out into the night, ready to embrace all that lay ahead, ready to make the most of every precious moment and every incredible opportunity that came his way. For he knew that life was a gift, a precious and fragile thing that was meant to be cherished and celebrated. And he would spend the rest of his days living that truth, sharing his love and his light with all those whose lives he touched, building a legacy of kindness and compassion that would endure long after he was gone. And somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of the world, he knew that the anonymous donor was smiling, their heart filled with the same love and gratitude that he felt in his own. They might never meet, might never have the chance to look each other in the eye and express their thanks in person, but they would always be connected, always be part of the same beautiful tapestry of love and compassion that made up the human experience. And that, Jack knew, was the greatest gift of all, the most precious and enduring legacy that any person could ever hope to leave behind. As the seasons changed and the years passed, Jack found himself marveling at the incredible transformation that had taken place in his life and in his community. Where once there had been despair and hopelessness, there was now a sense of purpose and possibility, a belief that anything was possible if people worked together towards a common goal. The scholarship program that Jack had started with the anonymous donation had grown and flourished over the years, providing educational opportunities to countless young people who might never have had the chance to pursue their dreams otherwise. Jack had watched with pride as these students had gone on to become doctors, lawyers, teachers, and community leaders, each one making their own unique contribution to the world. The community center that Jack had founded had also become a hub of activity and engagement, a place where people of all ages and backgrounds could come together to learn, grow, and support one another. There were classes and workshops on everything from cooking and gardening to computer skills and financial literacy, as well as a wide range of recreational activities and events that brought people together and fostered a sense of belonging and connection. But perhaps the most profound change of all had been the one that had taken place within Jack himself. Where once he had been a man haunted by grief and loss, struggling to find his place in the world, he was now a leader and a visionary, a beacon of hope and inspiration to all those whose lives he touched. He had found a sense of purpose and meaning that he had never known before, a deep and abiding commitment to making the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. And he had discovered a wellspring of strength and resilience within himself that he never knew he possessed. a courage and determination that allowed him to face even the greatest challenges with grace and optimism. As he sat in his office one morning, surrounded by the bustle and energy of the community center he had built, Jack found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. He thought back to those early days, when he had first received the anonymous donation and had been filled with a sense of overwhelming gratitude and responsibility. He remembered the long hours and sleepless nights he had spent poring over budgets and grant proposals, the endless meetings and negotiations with local officials and community leaders. He thought about the setbacks and challenges he had faced along the way, the moments of doubt and frustration that had threatened to derail his efforts. But through it all, he had never lost sight of his vision, never wavered in his commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. And now, as he looked out at the vibrant, thriving community that surrounded him, he knew that all the hard work and sacrifice had been worth it. As he sat there, lost in thought, Jack's eyes fell upon a small, framed photograph that sat on his desk. It was a picture of Liz, the woman whose act of kindness had set him on this path so many years ago. In the photo, she was smiling, her eyes filled with the same warmth and compassion that had touched his heart so deeply. Jack felt a lump form in his throat as he looked at the photo, remembering the incredible impact that Liz had had on his life. He thought about the way she had reached out to him in his darkest hour, offering comfort and support when he needed it most. He remembered the countless hours they had spent together, working side by side to rebuild her home and her life. And he thought about the way she had inspired him, showing him the power of kindness and generosity to transform lives and communities. She had taught him that every act of compassion, no matter how small, had the potential to create ripples of change that would spread out across the world, touching countless lives in ways that could never be fully measured or understood. As he sat there gazing at Liz's photo, Jack felt a sense of deep gratitude and love wash over him. He knew that he owed so much to this remarkable woman, that his life had been forever changed by her example and her friendship. And he knew that in his own way, he had tried to honor her legacy, to carry on the work that she had started, spreading kindness and hope wherever he went. He had taken the incredible gift that she had given him, the gift of a second chance, and had used it to make the world a little bit brighter, a little bit more beautiful. With a heart full of gratitude, Jack picked up the phone and dialed Liz's number, hoping to share with her the incredible news of all that had been accomplished. Thanks to her act of kindness so many years ago, he knew that she would be thrilled to hear about the scholarships and the community center, about the countless lives that had been touched and transformed by the work that he had done. But as the phone rang and rang, Jack felt a sense of unease wash over him. He had not spoken to Liz in many years, had not even been sure if she was still alive. And now, as the minutes ticked by and there was no answer, he began to fear the worst. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the phone was picked up, and a voice he did not recognize spoke on the other end. It was a nurse at a local hospital, informing him that Liz had been admitted a few days earlier and that her condition was serious. Jack felt his heart sink as he listened to the nurse's words, a sense of dread and sadness washing over him. He had always hoped to see Liz again, to thank her in person for all that she had done for him, and now it seemed that he might never have the chance. Without hesitation, Jack left the office and drove straight to the hospital, his heart heavy, with the thought of what he might find. When he arrived, he was taken to Liz's room, where he found her lying still and quiet, her face pale and drawn. For a long moment, he simply stood there, gazing down at her, tears streaming down his face. He thought about all the incredible moments they had shared, all the laughter and tears, the hard work and the triumph. He thought about the way she had believed in him, even when he had not believed in himself, and about the incredible gift She had given him the gift of a second chance at life. And then, as he reached out and took her hand in his, he felt a flicker of movement, a slight squeeze that sent a jolt of hope through his heart. He watched as Liz's eyes fluttered open, as a faint smile spread across her face as she recognized him. "Jack," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with warmth and love. "You came?" Jack nodded, his own voice choked with emotion. "Of course I came, Liz. How could I not? You gave me so much, changed my life in ways I could never have imagined. I had to see you, to thank you for everything." Liz's smile widened, and she shook her head slightly. "You don't need to thank me, Jack. You did all the hard work yourself. I just gave you a little push in the right direction." Jack felt a surge of love and gratitude wash over him, and he squeezed her hand tighter. "No, Liz, you did so much more than that. You showed me what it means to be kind, to be generous, to put others before yourself. You taught me that every act of compassion, no matter how small, has the power to change lives and transform the world." Liz's eyes shone with tears, and she nodded. "And look at all the incredible things you've done, Jack. The scholarships, the community center, all. The lives you've touched and changed. You've carried on the work that we started together, and you've made the world a better place." Jack felt his own tears fall as he listened to her words, as he thought about the incredible journey that had brought them both to this moment. And he knew that no matter what happened, he would always carry Liz with him, always hold her close in his heart and in his memory. "Thank you, Liz," he whispered, his voice filled with love and gratitude. "Thank you for everything." And as he sat there, holding her hand and sharing stories of all that had been accomplished, Jack knew that he had been blessed beyond measure, that he had been given a gift that would last a lifetime. He had been touched by something special, something that had the power to transform lives and change the world. And he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always have the strength and the courage to face them, to keep fighting for what he believed in, to keep spreading kindness and compassion wherever he went. For he had been transformed by love, and that love would never leave him, would never fade away. It would always be there, guiding him and sustaining him, a light in the darkness that would never be extinguished. As Jack sat by Liz's bedside, holding her hand and sharing stories of the incredible impact her kindness had made, he couldn't help but feel a sense of deep gratitude and love for this remarkable woman who had changed his life in so many ways. He thought back to the moment when he had first met her, when he had been at his lowest point, struggling to find purpose and meaning in a world that seemed so cold and unforgiving. He remembered the way she had reached out to him, offering comfort and support when he needed it most, showing him the power of compassion and generosity to transform lives and heal broken hearts. And he thought about the incredible journey that had followed, the long hours and hard work, the setbacks and challenges, the moments of doubt and despair. Through it all, Liz had been there, guiding him and supporting him, believing in him even when he didn't believe in himself. She had taught him so much, not just about kindness and compassion, but about the incredible resilience and strength of the human spirit. She had shown him that even in the darkest of times, there was always hope, always the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. And now, as he sat by her side, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest, Jack knew that he had been given a gift beyond measure, a chance to make a real difference in the world, to carry on the work that Liz had started. He thought about the scholarships he had established, the countless young lives that had been transformed by the opportunity to pursue their dreams and reach their full potential. He thought about the community center he had built, the way it had become a beacon of hope and support for so many, a place where people could come together and find strength in one another. And he knew that none of it would have been possible without Liz, without her incredible generosity and her unwavering belief in the goodness of others. As the hours passed and the sun began to set outside the hospital window, Jack found himself reflecting on the lessons he had learned from this incredible woman, the wisdom she had shared with him over the years. He remembered the way she had always encouraged him to follow his heart, to trust in the power of his own convictions, and to never give up on his dreams. She had taught him that true happiness came not from material possessions or outward success, but from the connections we made with others, the love and compassion we shared. And she had shown him that every act of kindness, no matter how small, had the power to create ripples of change that would spread out across the world, touching countless lives in ways that could never be fully measured or understood. As Jack sat there, lost in thought, he felt a gentle squeeze on his hand, and he looked down to see Liz smiling up at him, her eyes filled with warmth and love. "You've done so much, Jack," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with pride. "You've carried on the work we started together, and you've made the world a better place. I'm so proud of you." Jack felt his throat tighten with emotion, and he leaned down to place a gentle kiss on her forehead. "I couldn't have done it without you, Liz," he said softly. "You showed me the way, gave me the strength to keep going even when things seemed impossible. You changed my life in ways I could never have imagined." Liz smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "And you've changed mine, Jack. You've given me hope, shown me that there is still goodness and kindness in the world. You've been a light in the darkness, a reminder of all that is beautiful and true." For a long moment, they simply sat there, holding each other's hands and basking in the warmth of their connection. And then, with a final squeeze of his hand, Liz closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep, a peaceful smile on her face. Jack watched her for a long time, his heart full of love and gratitude for this incredible woman who had touched his life in so many ways. And he knew that no matter what happened, he would always carry her with him, always hold her close in his heart and in his memory. As he finally stood to leave, Jack paused for a moment, looking out at the world beyond the hospital walls. He thought about all the challenges that lay ahead, all the work that still needed to be done to build a better, kinder world. But he also knew that he was not alone, that he had the strength and the courage to face whatever lay ahead. He had been touched by something special, something that had the power to transform lives and change the world. And he knew that, as long as he held on to that love, as long as he continued to spread kindness and compassion wherever he went, there was nothing he could not achieve. With a final glance back at Liz's sleeping form, Jack squared his shoulders and stepped out into the world, ready to face whatever lay ahead. He had been given a gift, a chance to make a real difference, and he knew that he would spend the rest of his days honoring that gift, building a legacy of love and compassion that would endure long after he was gone. For he had learned the true meaning of life, the secret to happiness and fulfillment. It was not about the material possessions we accumulated or the accolades we received, but about the connections we made, the love we shared, the difference we made in the lives of others. And as he walked out into the sunlight, Jack felt a sense of peace and purpose wash over him. He knew that he had been blessed beyond measure, that he had been given the opportunity to touch countless lives and make the world a better place. And he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always have the strength and the courage to face them, to keep fighting for what he believed in, to keep spreading kindness and compassion wherever he went. For he had been transformed by love, and that love would never leave him, would never fade away. It would always be there, guiding him and sustaining him, a light in the darkness that would never be extinguished. As Jack made his way home that evening, he couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. He thought about all the twists and turns, the ups and downs, the moments of joy and sorrow that had shaped his life and his character. And he knew that through it all, There had been one constant, one guiding force that had never let him down. The power of kindness, the incredible capacity of the human heart to love and to give, to reach out and make a difference in the lives of others. He thought about the anonymous donor who had started it all, the person whose incredible generosity had set him on this path so many years ago. He might never know their name or their face, but he would always be grateful for the gift they had given him, the chance to make a real and lasting difference in the world. And he thought about Liz, the woman who had shown him the way, who had taught him the true meaning of compassion and sacrifice. She had been his mentor, his friend, his guiding light, and he knew that he would carry her with him always, holding her close in his heart and in his memory. As he arrived home and stepped inside, Jack felt a sense of deep contentment wash over him. He knew that he had been given a rare and precious gift, the chance to live a life of purpose and meaning, to touch the lives of others in ways that would ripple out across the world. And he knew that, as long as he held on to that gift, as long as he continued to spread kindness and love wherever he went, there was nothing he could not achieve, no challenge he could not overcome. For he had learned the secret to a life well lived, the key to true happiness and fulfillment. It was not about the grand gestures or the public accolades, but about the small, everyday acts of compassion and generosity, the quiet moments of connection and love that had the power to change lives and transform the world. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit full of hope, Jack settled into his evening routine, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities, new chances to make a difference and spread a little more light in the world. He might not know what the future held, but he knew that he would face it with courage and compassion, with kindness and love. For he had been touched by something special, something that had the power to change everything, and he would spend the rest of his days honoring that gift, building a legacy of goodness and grace that would endure long after he was gone. As he drifted off to sleep that night, Jack's mind was filled with visions of the world he hoped to create, a world where kindness and compassion reigned supreme, where every person had the chance to live a life of dignity and purpose, filled with love and hope and joy. And he knew that as long as he held on to that vision, as long as he kept fighting for what he believed in, there was nothing that could stand in his way, no obstacle that could not be overcome. For he had learned the true power of the human spirit, the incredible resilience and strength that lies within us all, and he knew that together there was nothing we could not achieve, no dream that was too big, no challenge that was too great. With a smile on his face and a heart full of hope, Jack closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep, ready to face the new day and all the possibilities it held. For he had been given a second chance, a chance to make a real and lasting difference in the world, and he knew that he would make the most of every moment, every opportunity, every chance to spread a little more kindness and compassion in the world. For that was the true meaning of life, the secret to happiness and fulfillment, and he would spend the rest of his days living that truth, sharing his love and his light with all those whose lives he touched. As the story comes to a close, we are reminded of the incredible power of kindness and compassion to transform lives and change the world. Jack's journey is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the incredible capacity we all have to make a difference, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant our actions may seem. It is a reminder that each and every one of us has the power to create ripples of change, to touch the lives of others in ways that will spread out across the world, creating a legacy of love and compassion that will endure long after we are gone. So let us take inspiration from Jack's story, from the incredible example he sets for us all. Let us remember that every act of kindness, every gesture of compassion has the power to change lives and transform the world. And let us go out into The world with open hearts and open minds, ready to spread a little more light and love wherever we go, ready to make a difference in the lives of all those we touch. For that is the true meaning of life, the secret to happiness and fulfillment, and it is a lesson that we can all take to heart, a reminder of the incredible power we all hold within us to create a better, kinder, more compassionate world. So, let us hold on to that lesson. Let us carry it with us always, as we go out into the world and make our mark, as we strive to build a legacy of love and compassion that will endure long after we are gone. For in the end, that is all that truly matters. The connections we make, the lives we touch, the difference we make in the world. And as long as we hold on to that truth, as long as we keep spreading kindness and love wherever we go, there is nothing we cannot achieve, no dream that is too big, no challenge that is too great. So let us go forth with courage and compassion, with kindness and love. Let us be the change we wish to see in the world, and let us never forget the incredible power we all hold within us to make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.